So, what about grace? Well, as we cultivate surrender and continue releasing the impacts of living in a world where love has yet to take its hold, we begin to be clearer and more receptive and more resilient conduit for the wholeness that already surrounds us. And if we're becoming divinely human, maybe divine grace should be part of our experience. Now, the thing is, the word grace may have many meanings to different people, many nuances and understandings. So I was trying to think of other words that we might be useful to us in describing this, to elucidate this concept. So how about words like blessing, favor, enrichment, good luck, serendipity, intuitive understanding, communion, accord, benevolence. I think these are all candidates in certain ways and describe certain, what we call the dimensions of this thing we call grace. And I like to quote Serene Jones, who is the past provost of Union Theological Seminary in New York. She has said that grace is more original than sin. Or we might say, in our language, grace is more foundational to ultimate reality than separation or division. A teacher I had many years ago said enlightenment or awakening is the simplest state of awareness. All other states, everything else, is more complicated, more difficult, and takes more effort. And these ecstatic states of grace don't require effort. We don't climb in love, we fall in love. And like that, falling into grace is a surrender. And it arrives spontaneously in its own time, of its own, on its own. And when the goddess comes for you, that power sweeps aside every resistance and reluctance and insufficiency. Speaking from my own experience, I could say this grace comes on unexpectedly as a kind of, I can only say, sublime and humbling exaltation that it feels like a tender, porous, burning communion with all things. In a certain way, it's like the reticular activating system in my brain has taken a break. And all the information that flows in from all the five senses that normally gets filtered out in order to ensure my survival, that all comes flooding in. And the thing is, it's not discordant. Somehow it's all harmonious and breathtakingly beautiful. And these states of grace seem to differ between people, in my experience, depending on their particular dispositions and their life journeys. But one thing that I feel is sort of common to all of us is that as we evolve in this life, we eventually find ourselves in an apprenticeship to love. But it's not a love that's always all warm and fuzzy, but it's frequently fierce. This kind of love is limitless in its intensity. It's bottomless in its transformative power. And it's endless in its stern requirements. And one requirement that's become really obvious to me, I've discovered, is that I must repeatedly, in a, I was going to say stay, but you can't really stay, in a moment to moment recognition that I need to relax into that innocent and permeable beginner's mind that makes all things new. That place where I meet each new moment, each new experience with what Terry Patton called the childlike eyes of surprise. And walking through my life with my guard down, I must trust myself, trust in others, trust in life, and ultimately trust in being. And this is without recourse to the known, the familiar, the previous. I must welcome the emergent, the new, the undiscovered, because that's where the grace is waiting. Yeah. Now, there's one other seemingly contradictory dimension to this, which Ram Dass has pointed our attention to. And that's sometimes that grace can be fierce. Sometimes we can be pierced and abraded and even eviscerated by some experience in this life. And yet, in time, we come to see that experience somehow as a hidden blessing. Many of us may have that understanding of a challenging experience in our past. Life is much more manageable when we're managing it. Unfortunately, these transitions aren't very manageable, as you come to find. They just have a life of their own and an intensity that sometimes kind of, if you're not familiar with it, kind of breathtaking, really. And contain a challenge to a lot of what we may have come to expect by virtue of the idea, which is very common in many spiritual circles, that the gold standard of spiritual maturity is dispassion. Mm-hmm. My experience of grace is anything but dispassion. It's quite passionate, and it's just, it has a kind of, it just, you see this world in a way that it just, in its all of its wondrous and devastating beauty. And it can activate things in us that elucidate either fear or a desire to pull back, or this I'm more familiar with, in the early days of this, unworthiness. Oh. Who am I to be saying, who am I? This guy that can, in tense situations, hardly put a sentence together without stuttering. Who am I to be talking about this or to have this happen to me? And that took quite a while for that to, diffuse or volatilize. I'm not sure if either of those feel familiar to you or speak to your experience of this. When this first started happening to me, it took me a while to get used to trying to talk about this because I knew from the inside my tears and my cracking voice and my trembling and all that I wasn't breaking down. I wasn't falling apart. It was just a testament to the force of what's coming through.
Yeah.
I feel the same is true for you. And nothing wrong with it. It's just going to take a while for your body to get used to that kind of voltage. But it will. I have. It's taken, a while, about 10 years or so. But I'm here as a former electrical contractor to tell you that your wiring can be upgraded to handle this voltage. No question.
You know?
You don't have to dampen it down.